This is the Bax Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
It's Tuesday. It's a great day. The week of NFL football basically drove me back to alcoholism. No, that's not it. But 3 overtime games. The Bears won. The Browns won. I just can't even with the NFL. And
Buccaneers beat the Jaguars.
Just stop. There's too much. There's too much madness. I can't deal with it.
But it's not March.
Right? It feels like it with all the crazy games. I feel like it should be March Madness right now. Where's Butler? Somebody call Butler or George Mason or somebody and get them going here.
I'm not looking forward to March Madness because Wisconsin basketball is just not going to be what it was the last 2 years. So I'm just going to cry.
Well, I think last year we set ourselves up. We said, hey, this Badgers team's not going to go very far, and we were like, yeah, we'll be fine if they go out, 16, 32, whatever. But then they got to the finals, so I think maybe that's what we need to do. We need to tell the world that they're not going to do good again, and then they'll go far, and then hopefully I can do things this year.
But Wisconsin doesn't have Kaminsky.
True.
Does not have Josh Gasser.
True.
And does not have Sam Decker.
Who's basically the new James Harden down in Houston, just dropping buckets.
So, yeah, there's that. The only returning player, and his name is escaping me. Well, no, there is 2. Well, there's one from injury.
Yes.
And then
their name. Oh shoot!
No,
Nigel Hayes.
Yeah, Nigel Hayes is coming
who's
back.
The other? Who's the guard?
I can picture his hair because I remember people by their hair.
Yeah.
But
was it Duge? I mean Bronson Arroyo. I don't know. Anyway, the Badgers basketball team will be interesting to follow this year. But anyway, if you do like following us, remember you can get us right here Monday through Friday. That's what it is. Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 a.m. Central, live here on Spreaker.com and on Periscope. Good morning to all of you watching on Periscope. Great to see all of you this morning. We also want to remind you that you can get us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time. You can also get us on Live 365 and Tune In, and also on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com.
You can also find us on Facebook at the Bax Grant Sports Show. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at BG Sports Show. Baxter is at Baxter Colburn on Twitter. That's what it is, not Facebook. Twitter.
I'm also Baxter Colburn on Facebook also.
If you want to creep on him. Then I am Grant Rant BGS. Grant's Rant BGSS. Wow, at Grant's Rant BGSS.
Do you want some of my coffee this morning? I feel
like I was so distracted because I found what I was looking for, and then I was like, "That's all I want to say." But on Twitter, he's at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Grant's Rant BGSS. What I wanted to say was Bronson Koenig.
That's who it is.
That's the guard.
Bronson Koenig from La Crosse, Wisconsin. My wife is from La Crosse, and coincidentally enough, today is also my wife's birthday. Happy birthday, Mrs. Colburn. For those of you that listened to the show back last semester, you heard her come on and talk about the 5 should and should nots of dating a sports fanatic. So if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to it. It was episode 50, I believe. So if you go on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, you can go back and listen to
this guy remembering stuff like that.
It's the little things in life, Grant.
Psycho.
You give the people what they want enough times, and then they should love you forever. Anyway, all right, Grant.
Love you forever.
Something like that.
Is that how it works?
I hope so. That's what I'm going to keep telling myself. Good show for you today. Grant's got his rant. We're going to talk with David Kenyon in our next segment about his fantasy football outlook on what happened this last week in the NFL, and some more bye-week players to figure out coming up. I'm going to have a few guys on my bench this week that I might be a little sad about, but at the same time, I'm feeling pretty good about my lineup going into this next week. So before we get to any of that, though, last night was Monday Night Football. We saw the Steelers and the Chargers go at it head-to-head, a 24-20 game, where on paper it looks like it was a dueling battle to the death, but realistically it was a battle of boringness because neither team really produced anything. It was 7-3 at halftime, which kind of tells you how much of a barn burner it really was. I mean, sure, yeah, great. No, there's nothing really good that I can take away from this game. The fact that Michael Vick led a game-winning touchdown drive, which was great to see vintage Michael Vick come back out and lead the Steelers down the field and win the game, and Le'Veon Bell with a game-winning touchdown as time was expiring. It was very storybook, Grant, very storybook.
Right, but it was just, like you said, it was 7-3 at halftime, and then the third quarter, Pittsburgh's defense showed up. Well, they showed up the entire game, but they put points on the board.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, Pittsburgh's like, oh, we can win this game basically because our defense scored points because our offense couldn't. And San Diego's offense can't score. So it's like, are we really going to go 10-7 because the defense scored a touchdown to win the game?
I'm glad it didn't.
This is absolutely ridiculous. It was a really bad game. I was watching it. It was boring.
Did you? Yeah, I didn't get a chance to catch any of the game last night, but I was following it on social media and on my the Score app and ESPN app as well. But yeah, from looking at the box score, looking at the drive summaries and the ball possession, it doesn't look like it was a very good game. It's for the Pittsburgh Steelers, their first 4 drives of the game they punted, then they finally got a field goal, then they punted again, then they threw an interception, punt, touchdown.
Yeah,
that sounds like an awful game.
Yeah,
and they won. That's the winning team's drive summary.
Yeah, if you turned it on, it pretty soon became just background, just how boring it was. Michael Vick couldn't do anything. Half the time, Michael Vick couldn't do anything was because the pressure was so bad on him.
San Diego has a pass rush?
San Diego?
Question mark?
No, it was more just that.
Was it Manti Te'o's girlfriend making the sacks last night?
Yes.
What was going on with
that? The Steelers' offensive line struggled. They let 3 sacks in. Le'Veon Bell, though, did the best what he could. He had 21 carries for 111 yards, 5.3 yards average, so that's a very good day from him. But the offensive line that struggled the most was San Diego.
Yeah.
San Diego's offensive line was the sieve.
Well, let's sieve. Yeah. Well, let's look at it. Melvin Gordon in the first half, Grant, 4 carries for 9 yards.
Yeah, and they're saying, everybody's like, yeah, Melvin Gordon is not.
Somebody on Periscope says the last play of the game may have been the best play of their season. Yeah,
honestly,
more than likely. And hello to the person that said hi to us from Germany as well. Good morning. Thanks for watching.
But everybody's saying that Melvin Gordon, he's not producing. He's not effective. But okay, yeah, he's not producing. He's not effective. But if you only give him so many carries with an offensive line that is proven that it's not 100% Melvin Gordon's fault. Most of the time, when Phillip Rivers was under pressure, he had to get rid of the ball within a couple of seconds because there was a defender right in his face. Mm-hmm. He was rushed from the pocket almost every single play. And they threw up a stat somewhere during the game that the San Diego Chargers, they've started 27 different offensive linemen this year already.
What?
Yeah, something crazy.
How is that even possible?
Yeah. I don't know, but it was something that they started like 27 or 20-plus different offensive linemen. It's absolutely
just
ridiculous.
Know when to say no. Honestly,
say no to drugs.
Be like, just don't. Just
don't. But yeah, that's how many problems the Chargers' offensive line were having last night. So it's not 100% Melvin Gordon's fault.
It's true, and I get some of that, but I think that the stereotype does ring true somewhat with Melvin Gordon and how Badger running backs as a whole have not done well in the NFL, which is unfortunate. I mean, Monte Ball was dropped from the Broncos this season. We see James White kind of making a little bit of time in the Patriots' backfield. I think the Patriots realize that he's decent, but don't want to start him. And then you see Melvin kind of struggling in San Diego. But if he actually had a good offensive line, this might be a different conversation.
Well, when he found the holes, he was able to go somewhere. And then, of course, they put the backup running back in, and there was one really good play that he had for 9 rushing yards, Danny Woodhead.
Of course.
And it was a weak side play, and it completely fooled the defense, so it left like the whole left side of the field open. And I'm like, why can't Melvin get that? Melvin didn't get a good look like that the entire game.
Yeah.
And he did really well for some of the plays. He got something out of absolutely nothing. So he did okay with what he had. Not great, but I mean, he only got 15 touches, 42 yards, 2.8 yards a carry, 7 yards was his long. So
yeah, not greatest.
Great, but he did have 7 catches for 52 yards.
So in that regards, he made up for a little bit, and that's one thing we saw while Melvin played at Wisconsin is that he is a good 2-style offensive player. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, and he seems to be very dynamic when he gets the ball. But something that needs to be spoken about, Grant, is the return of Antonio Gates. He came back last night. He was suspended for the first 4 games of the year. Then he came back. Now we got to see him play. He was targeted a total of 11 times last night. He caught 9 passes for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns, officially placing him in the 100 touchdown reception category. Not the Hall of Fame, but like the club.
Yeah,
basically the 100 touchdown club. So immediately you can see just how badly San Diego missed Antonio Gates. Because he got 2 touchdowns last night.
Yeah, and we've seen their struggle with offensive production. It's just the Chargers team as a whole has been a struggle, so it is really just a breath of fresh air because it feels like any time that anybody got the ball, even though the passes are really spread out, but any time there was like bigger plays, it was Antonio Gates, even though I'm wrong because all of the longs are actually Antonio Gates has the shortest long, but that's what it feels like. It just felt like Antonio Gates was the one getting it done. But his longest catch was only for 12 yards. And you have Danny Woodhead for 31 yards. Keenan Allen for 20 yards. Melvin Gordon, his long was 18. Ladarius Green, 24. Malcolm Floyd had a 32-yard catch. But it felt like Antonio Gates was the only one doing anything. Malcolm Floyd, he ran an awful route that caused Phillip Rivers to throw an interception because he was supposed to run a flat. He didn't run a flat. He ran like the weird slant flat that because he was trying to drop back.
Is it like a little dump-off pass or what?
No, he was just run 7 yards, then just run straight across, just a simple flat route. And
to drag across the middle.
Right, and he tried to stretch it out a little bit more and just ran a slant flat. It was weird. Didn't run straight across, and that let the defender get inside of him and just pick the route super easily. And it was nothing that Phillip Rivers did. It just showed up on a stat sheet. But Malcolm Floyd wasn't able to do much. Melvin Gordon, like we talked about, couldn't get a lot done out of the backfield. He did get a couple of catches. But Antonio Gates he's the big body out there. He's a
hard guy to cover.
Yeah, he's the one guy that you can throw it out to, and he can muscle his way to get the ball. And even though there was a lot of production from the receivers, it felt like Antonio Gates was the only one showing up.
Yeah, and I want to just make a quick mention going back to Melvin Gordon for a second. We were wondering why he didn't have such a good night from running the ball. In terms of all the offensive plays that were run last night, Melvin Gordon was only on the field for 61% of the plays. He was only on the field for 46 plays last night. Out of the 75 that were run, he was on the field for 46 of them.
Yeah, and also he did have that one fumble I did forget to mention.
Yes.
He did have a lost
He seems to be
fumble
consistently fumbling, which is not a good trait.
Well, that is already his second fumble of the year, which is not great. And, I mean, we're saying he's not getting enough offensive production, but if we say that about players, we can say that about Adrian Peterson, the first game of the week.
the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, but when we say that, it's because we know that Adrian Peterson can produce.
Yes.
And then since he's gotten the carries, he has produced. He's gotten over 100 yards. But we don't have that for Melvin Gordon. He hasn't proven that. So, yes, you're saying he's underproducing, but if you're only giving 15 touches a game, and you're only putting him in 61% of the time, but you want him getting 600-plus yards, I mean, how can you produce? And before we go to a break, I want to quickly talk about that last play of the game. It was a fantastic play of the game. I was a little surprised because what happened is they set up in the Wildcat formation. Then San Diego called a timeout. And then they came back out, still in Wildcat formation. So it was they were sticking with their play, put Michael Vick on a wide receiver, and then put Le'Veon Bell in as the quarterback in shotgun. And they had 5 seconds left, and it was actually helpful because there was a defensive penalty which stopped the clock. If there wasn't a defensive penalty, the clock would have ran. They would have had to call their timeout and kick a field goal. So the defensive penalty was huge. Stopped the clock, basically gave the Steelers another timeout. Le'Veon Bell ran into the end zone, and he was like, yeah, I could have gotten down and called a timeout. The problem was it took him so long to get to the outside, and he gave a second effort to get himself into the end zone. If he didn't get that second effort, the Steelers would have lost that game.
Well, I'm glad that he didn't. I mean, he helps a lot of fantasy owners right at the end last night by rushing in for that touchdown. So, all right, well, speaking of fantasy, we're going to talk about that next. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the Bax Grant Sports Show. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
All right, well, Grant, traditionally at this time we would have the Encyclopedia of Football David Kenyon on the show with us, as we do every Tuesday and Thursday. However, we are experiencing a small bit of technical difficulties and are preventing us from doing said things with our phone cords. So David is here via instant messenger, and he's going to be sending some of his thoughts along as we go throughout the remainder of this segment. But let's take a look at the week that was in fantasy football. I was one of the fortunate enough people to have the second highest scorer in fantasy football this last week in Doug Martin from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had 32 total fantasy points overall. He had 3 total touchdowns, and 1 receiving, 2 passing, and or 1 receiving, 2 rushing. That's what it is. And it was a very good day, in my opinion, from a fantasy perspective, to have him on my team. And Doug is one of those players that I've had back and forth the last few weeks, and I've been like, well, maybe he'll do good, maybe he won't.
You never know.
I really didn't know what to expect, in total honesty, and then he finally decided to show up, and I'm like, oh, right, Doug, you used to be a thing.
Right.
Thank you for reminding me why I drafted you. Like, it's been very not necessarily, well, maybe nerve-wracking is the right one, to have him on my team. So, like I said, some days he's great, some days he's not, and it's been very iffy. So I was fortunate enough to win my fantasy game this last week, Grant. I won by a score of 112-69 over Team Landvatter of Megan Landvatter. How did you do this last week?
I unfortunately lost this week to Sam Wallace. I was winning the entire day until Sunday Night Football. Sam Wallace's last player, Mr. Eli Manning, comes in and drops a 25 bomb on me.
Boom.
Yeah.
Actually, it says he officially ended with 28.
Oh, 28. Sorry. It must have been at the end of the game.
I think you got a few extra little things.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. But yeah, I lose 101-86, which I'm actually fairly okay with because I've had lower scoring games the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
So
it was nice to get
it's promising to see plus 80 points. So I'm not going to complain. But
I wouldn't complain either.
But actually, I need a little bit of help. What
can I help you with, Grant?
With my team, I'm having Todd Gurley, he did well 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I sat him on my bench. But this last week I played him, got me a decent amount of points because he broke 100 yards. But he is on a bye this week. And I have my two backup running backs, Bishop Sankey, who has gotten 32 points all year. He averages 8 points a game, so not
consistent,
horrible.
Yeah.
He got a decent amount of points last week, I believe like 15 or something like that. And then my other running back, Ryan Matthews. And Bishop Sankey plays Miami, and Ryan Matthews plays the Giants.
Okay.
So my problem is I would like to play Matthews, but Matthews doesn't get consistent amount of touches.
No, he doesn't.
Week in and week out.
He's splitting the carries between 3 different people, which makes it difficult.
But when he gets the ball, he does pretty well with it. But the only problem is he going to get the ball? The first couple of weeks, he didn't. Well, 1 week he didn't get the ball at all. Then the next week he's the number 1 guy and he gets a bunch of points, and then the next week he doesn't get anything. So I really don't know with him and his consistency. So Baxter, what is your opinion on it?
Well, I think the best part to do it is the fact that Miami's defense is struggling hardcore. Bishop Sankey initially is the first person I would think to step in. It's neither is doing the best. Ryan Matthews, as you mentioned, has been so-so. He's been inconsistent, and you never really know who's going to get the ball in Philly. And they play the Giants, so that's a divisional game, which automatically raises the stakes much higher. So I would probably go with Bishop Sankey in that regards. Miami, they don't know what they're doing. They just fired their head coach. It's hard, though, because Sankey had the first week of the season, he did really, really good. Then he's averaged 4 and 4. Then he had a bye week. Then he had 4 again. And then Ryan Matthews, you look at what he's done the last few weeks. He had 8 points opening week, 0, 16, 0, and 15.
See, that's who it was. I was thinking Ryan Matthews got 15 points last week, not Bishop Sankey.
Yes, yeah. So, oh, gosh.
So, yeah, see, you don't know. Like, 1 week he gets touches, and the next week he only... Like, week 2, he only had 1 rushing attempt, and then week 4, he had 4 rushing attempts. So, it's, does he...
That's...
Or 5 rushing attempts. Does he get the carries? And last week, he only had 8 attempts, but he got 73 yards out of it in a touchdown. So
it all kind of depends. Points. It all depends on how much of a betting man you want to be, I feel like, because who's the lesser of two evils? I mean... I don't have a great answer for you. My first bit of advice would be to hit the wire, see if there's anybody on waivers that you can pick up. Kansas City is now looking for a new running back, so you might have an opportunity to pick up one of their guys. Some of the notes that we have here from David Kenyon that I want to make mention of that he's messaging them in today because he is not able to join us via the phone. We mentioned about Melvin Gordon, as we talked about it earlier, but he said Melvin Gordon played more than 50% of San Diego's snaps for the first time. He deserves to play less. Consistently 3.5 yards per carry this season. He is terrible fit in that offense, and Danny Woodhead gives them a bigger passing threat. That's the style the Chargers play, which is very true. Melvin Gordon is not typical of what you see with the Chargers offense. Now, I mentioned about Jamal Charles. And for those of you that own Jamal Charles in fantasy football, I'm sorry, Sam Wallace, you own him here in our Bax Grant Sports Show Fantasy Football League. Jamal Charles, ACL injury, done for the year. David Kenyon says that Jamal Charles' ACL injury is the biggest pickup would likely be Sharkhandrick West instead of Nile Davis. Davis has a fumbling problem, and has a fumbling problem when receiving the biggest volume of touches. West had 7 touches. After Charles went out, Davis only had 2. It might be a sign of things to come. So, more than likely, in most fantasy leagues, Sharkhandrick West might be someone to keep an eye on. It depends on if you trust the Kansas City offensive line as well. There's that bit. But, I mean, if Jamal can do it, I mean, who's to say that maybe, somebody else couldn't do it? I don't know. But, I mean, looking at the people that are even available, it's just such a hot mess. James Starks from the Green Bay Packers, maybe. We didn't see Eddie Lacy get the ball a whole lot this last week, so that might be something to keep an eye on. Another thing to mention that David Kenyon sends in, he said that he is considering benching Antonio Brown this week because Michael Vick is playing So bad. 3 so's.
Well, okay, yeah, I wouldn't say 3 so's. I'd maybe say 1 so. I'd agree with 1 so, and he's playing so bad.
Yes, but there's a reason for it, though. He said in this next game he's considering benching him because they play the Arizona Cardinals next, who has Patrick Peterson, who is doing reasonably well this season. He said no way Brown gets a ton of passing yards next week.
Truth. But then that's when he is going to go absolutely off, and they're going to win the game on the legs of Brown. That's because he said that. Now it's going to happen.
More than likely, because that's just how David Kenyon works. One other bit of advice that he drops, he says Willie Snead is a bigger part of the New Orleans Saints offense and is not not only are the Saints are pretty bad, so they'll have to throw. Marcus Colston left the last game with a pretty serious shoulder injury, and Snead is now the clear number 2 option, so his target should rise steadily. So if you're looking for a wide receiver and you're off the wires, you have a guy like Drew Brees throwing him the ball. Willie Snead of the New Orleans Saints is someone to keep an eye on. One of the people I want to make a mention of is I wonder how many people are going to go after Ty Montgomery from the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I wonder. Is he gone in our league? Because I thought
he's not.
Was.
I've already heard rumors of him being claimed by people. People have already submitted waiver claims, but I mean, if you pay the right guy, the commissioner might be able to make him disappear and end up on another team depending on the right price. Gotcha, no, I would never. However, there is an opportunity for Ty Montgomery to possibly be good. Maybe that's going to work out for some people. Maybe that won't. I don't know. He seems to be favored heavily by Aaron Rodgers right now. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, and Grant, you're 4th in the waiver order this week in Bax and Grant Sports Show Fantasy Football League, so you might have a pretty good opportunity to nail some of those guys that you're hoping for. I know that Connor Christensen and a few other folks are buried also on the bottom. Let's see. Let's look at our standings quick here in the Bax and Grant Sports Show Fantasy Football League. Connor Christensen's Houston Oilers are 1-4. Straight out of ACLs is 1-4. You're 2-3, and the Wolfpack is 2-3, along with a few other teams that are 2-3 also. So the waiver order is a little different, a little interesting right now. So I'm curious to know exactly where everybody ends up. If we're looking at the current playoff bracket for the Bax and Grant Sports Show, I've got the number 1 seed.
Proud of you.
Play Team Landvatter, supposedly, in the number 8 seed. Palatown Monsters would play Detroit Area Nerdy Guys, which is Zach Poppenfuss and Danny Hoffenstein. Cortland Prosecutors would play Run From the 1, which is Chris Blakely. And the Fort Wayne Vandals, coming in at that 7th spot, would take on the Cuban Raft Riders. So that would be a pretty fun fantasy football playoff thingy. Tournament.
Thingy.
That's what I was looking for. I'm like, thingy, tournament, meh. I don't know. Words sometimes are not always the greatest. So, if you have any fantasy football questions, let us know. Feel free to tweet at us at Baxter Colburn, at Grants Rant, BGSS, at BG Sports Show. Maybe you had Josh McCown on your team last week. Maybe you had Blake Bortles on your team. Maybe you didn't. More than likely you didn't, because who would? But still, maybe. Josh McCown threw 35 fantasy points last week. Over 450 yards passing. Maybe something to keep an eye on going forward. Who knew that the Browns actually had maybe a kind of sort of good quarterback?
Maybe kind of. When's
the last time a Browns player was the top producer in fantasy football? Somebody check the stat book. It's been a long time. We'll be right back. This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Welcome back to the Bax Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I am Bax.
And this is Grant.
All right, a Tuesday morning edition of the Bax Grant Sports Show, continuing to roll on as we now move to the part of the show where Grant comes out and sings a silly song with a bass guitar. Now, Grant's rant is now going on. For those of you that didn't hear yesterday, Grant is only here this week on Tuesday and Thursday, as we are in the middle of some programming switches and some other life things that are continuing to pop up as well. So
Yep.
bear with us. So Grant's rant this week, if you're looking for it, will be on Tuesday and Thursday. And Grant will be ranting about something taking place in America's game. The best, the classic America's game.
Yeah, because if you know who my favorite team is and following how they've been doing, you better than
The
expected
Montreal Expos. No.
Oh, wow.
Pulling that one out.
Woo! Throwback!
Way back.
Totally forgot that they were a thing.
Oh, I'm sure they probably would like to make sure people forgot they were a thing also.
Please don't remember
They're
us.
like, we're not worthy to be remembered.
We weren't really a baseball team.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the way Grant's rant works is that he gets a minute on the clock to rant about anything he wants in the sports world, and then we hash it out a little bit more in detail and then go to a break. So, Grant, are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Minute on the clock begins now.
All right, so the St. Louis Cardinals have now dropped 2-1 in the divisional series against the Cubs. They lost last night 8-6, actually handing Arrieta pretty well, but Arrieta gets the win, Walker gets the loss, because the Cardinals last night gave up 6 home runs.
What?
Against the Chicago Cubs.
How the...
Yeah, so there was that. My one problem with that is they put Adam Wainwright in. As we know, Adam Wainwright went out with an Achilles injury from an at-bat early in the season.
Yes.
He comes back, and I don't know why they're putting him in the game in the playoffs. Just bench him. Don't even touch him in the playoffs. Last time this happened, Chris Carpenter, he was the starter. Got injured early, first game of the season. Put him in as a starter in the playoffs. He loses a game, loses another game, just awful in the playoffs. Don't touch Wainwright. Don't put him in. And the playoff system is just totally debunked because of what they are doing with the seeding and the top 3 teams all having to face each other at once.
6 home runs in one game?
6. And Cardinals put up 6 points, and it's not enough.
Oh, man.
And now they're in danger. And
well,
I'm mad.
Down 2-1.
Yeah.
Where's the series now? Is it still in Chicago?
I don't know. It's because I think it still is. But game 5 series...
5-game series?
5-game series home stuff is kind of weird sometimes. I never really
completely
that's right.
Understand They're always
it.
All over the place.
But I think it's still in Chicago.
So if Chicago wins, your Cardinals are going to start flying south for the winter then.
Yep. Yeah, they're in Chicago.
That game is today. Today at 3:37 Central, because baseball doesn't like to play at a normal time. That game is on TBS.
They're all starting the game last night.
Awkward?
Started at 7:07.
Why? That's so weird.
They probably have 7 minutes of introduction starting at 7.
Well, as a PA announcer, I get that you want a little bit of time, and the national anthem, and the TV spots,
first pitch,
I get it, but just do that all. Say 7:30 and just start the game and just start all the hoopla at 7.
Hoopla.
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
But yeah, all the divisional series were either pushed to a Game 5 or with the New York Mets and the LA Dodgers, that because the National League Series games are behind a game, was pushed to a 2-1. So we had Chicago Cubs go up 2-1 over the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. You know what? If the Cardinals drop this next game, I'm gonna jump on that Cubby train.
Whoa!
I'm gonna jump on the Cubby train.
Don't do it, Grant. You're too young.
Of course, I have to stick to my Cardinals.
Obviously,
but
don't give up hope yet.
And I just despise the Cubs. But I'm kind of liking the Cubbies if they take out the Cardinals. I'm still liking the Cardinals, but the Cubs are a really tough team. They were the third best record-wise in all of MLB. So I could jump on the Cubbies train.
I feel like
the Cardinals
Chicago
get
would
eliminated.
Just explode.
Oh, they would
if they won the World Series.
Well, because they beat Pirates in the wild card, and then they beat the Cardinals in a divisional series. those are the top 2 teams, and they come out and beat them.
Yeah.
So
who do they play if they win this after the fact? They would play
the Dodgers or the Mets.
And that series is up 2-1 in favor of the Mets after the Mets dropped 13 runs on the Dodgers.
Yes, 13, yeah. Kind of crazy. At home as well. So the Mets have...
Do the Mets have what it takes to take out the Cubs?
No.
No.
I don't think the Mets have what it takes to take out the Cubs.
Does anybody left in the playoffs have anything? Take out the Cardinals for a second. Is there any team that Chicago could potentially face that could take them out?
I think you could argue the Kansas City Royals, but they've been struggling at the end of the season. They kind of took off a nosedive. They were toe-to-toe with the Cardinals, and then they just kind of tapered off towards the end.
What about the Texas Rangers? I know they've got some pretty good players on their team.
Yeah, but they've been inconsistent at best. They posted, I think, 10 less wins, and they have some offensive issues that they don't produce as many runs. But, I mean, that's the same thing with the Cardinals. The Cardinals don't post a lot of runs. Cardinals, I'm forgetting the number, but they have a crazy, ridiculous record, winning by 1 run. But that being, they have like 25-6. They have like 25-6 is like their record. Is their record by winning by 1 point.
Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, the fact that's commendable that they can hold on to a 1-run lead, but that means that
their offense just
But then also ask questions about it too, yeah.
And then moving on to the American League, we have the Kansas City Royals with a comeback. The Houston Astros were looking to take the entire series. They were winning, and then they fold against the Kansas City Royals.
The governor of Texas tweeted out before the game was over. He said, "Glad to see the Astros, win the game, And then he tweeted at the Rangers too. He's like, "Come on, Rangers, pick up the slack." And then Houston lost the game.
Yeah, see that?
He tweeted before the game was over, like while the game was still going on. He was like, "Oh, Houston's got this," and then Houston imploded, and Kansas City was like, "Ha ha, gotcha."
See, this is why you don't pull
This is why you don't tweet.
This is why you don't pull the Russell Wilson, say 1-0 when you're 2-3.
Don't be doing none of that.
Yeah, you wait to the end of the game. I learned this lesson last weekend, and I normally always watch games to the end, even though if it looks bad. When Wisconsin missed that second-to-last field goal, I turned off the game because I'm like, game is over, totally forgetting that Wisconsin had 3 more timeouts. Defense held up. They came all the way down the field and kicked the game-winning field goal.
Let's go!
Won the game, but I turned it off because I was just so mad. And I never do that. And I always know. You watch to the end of the game. You always go to the end.
True.
And I normally...
Unless you're up by a gratuitous amount of points.
Right. Well, still even then.
Depending on the sport.
Even then, I still watch to the end. Soccer is actually pretty fun to watch. The score get run up on. That Germany-Brazil game.
Am I right?
That game was so much fun to watch. Even for somebody who's not a big soccer fan. I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Because I recognized how cool that was. But yeah, I normally always watch until the end.
You have to. As a sports fan, you need to watch all the way to the end.
And it normally never pays off, but I don't care. Because I'm like, what are these days it's not? Or it is. And then it ended up not. I was upset. Anyway, looking over at the last game, the Toronto Blue Jays force a game 5 over the Texas Rangers. I finally got that name right. Woo! I always just get my Texas teams mixed up. There's too many Texas teams. So they win with a score of 8-4. Also, Baxter, a fun little note yesterday.
Yes.
Team set one-day playoff record for 21 total home runs in one day over all 4 playoff games. So that's pretty explosive day for Major League. So if people say that the Major League Baseball is boring, point to today, 21 total home runs in a playoff game.
Who would have seen that coming? It didn't help that Chicago dropped 6 of those.
Yeah, that was actually kind of ridiculous. I cried a lot.
I'm sorry. Do you need a tissue?
I was like, the game is, it's 2-2. I'll turn it on. And I was in a really bad mood, so I'm like, I don't want to watch my team getting crushed. I was just... ain't nobody got time for that.
Truth.
And I'm like, playoffs sometimes is a little too stressful. I turn it on. The second I turn it on, there's a 2-run home run.
So it was your fault that they lost.
Yeah, that's what I'm turning this off. I'm done. Because my wife is like, well, you're only going to watch your team if they're winning? And I'm like, oh, she's right. She's right. I got to watch. And then I turn it on, and then they get smoked. And I'm like, Keela, this is your fault.
Oh, gosh. All right, we're going to go to a break, and we come back. There's a little bit of change happening south of the border in terms of college football. We'll talk about that. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Bax Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
Well, Grant, college football, something that we need to spend a little time speaking on. We usually don't, unfortunately, give it a ton of time on the show.
There's just There's
a lot to talk about.
It's really hard to cover college football with a general blanket because there are so many teams.
Blanket.
Really, to cover a college football team efficiently, you have to just focus on that one or a certain conference.
Yeah.
Like you can have a Big Ten specialist, but it is really hard for you to follow more because there's just so many football teams.
Yeah.
It's not like National Football League where you can be like, hey,
I 32 teams, no big deal.
Yeah, I can talk about this. In college football, in Division I, there are hundreds of football teams. There is no way you can keep your head straight with all the rosters and coaching changes and their strategies and this, that, and the other thing and their schedule strength and all this stuff that you normally have to keep control of. Like, that's hard enough to do with 32 teams sometimes. Like, we had to make a whole separate list of backup quarterbacks so we could get them all straight. Yeah, can't do that for college football. There's just way too many college football teams.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. So we want to talk about firing and a retirement. Steve Sarkisian has officially been fired by USC.
He's a struggle bus.
He is, yes. And we're going to do our best to not dive into it too badly because the team officially did release him, and they did release a statement about it as well. And they said, after careful consideration of what is the best interest of the university and our student athletes, I have made the decision to terminate Steve Sarkisian effective immediately. And that was the USC athletic director, Pat Hayden, that said that. Now, Sarkisian was reported as showing up lit to meetings, as one of the players would say. He appeared not normal. A source also said they wouldn't let him come to practice. And immediately you hear that, and you're like, well, something must be going on. Like,
right.
You wouldn't be coaching USC if something was going on, but they do go on to say what the issues were that he was dealing with.
Well, and it also relates back to the issue that we had earlier in the season when he showed up to an event intoxicated and was very outlandish, came out and apologized. And I was like, all right, okay. And it was actually a pretty good apology. He seemed very, very emotional. He seemed very honest by the apology. And I was like, okay, all right. And I was listening to a report on ESPN, and they said probably the front office was like, okay, this is fine. Just go out. And USC was supposed to be really, really good this year. They had a great quarterback. They had a great team.
Yeah.
They were going to come out, just say, win a bunch of games. You got this, you're fine. They come out, they're not winning games.
Yeah.
The team has been under a little bit of scrutiny. And then reports are starting to leak out of the team saying that the team supposedly that just reported that he was supposed to go to rehab of some kind or get some help
Yep.
And we don't know if he did that or not. I don't know.
He's said to have entered rehab amid broad support
recently,
yes.
like since the firing. But that's all speculation. I'm not going to delve into that. But,
yep, exactly. But basically, what it was though is the reason that folks are assuming that for his issues was that he's currently going through a divorce right now, which is never a good situation for anybody, good, bad, or otherwise. And his behavior, while apparently under the influence of alcohol and painkillers at the Salute to Troy function in August, drew national headlines, as you mentioned, Grant, which he later apologized for. And he also added that he would be getting unspecified treatment, but didn't believe he had a drinking problem, blaming his unsteady appearance on combining alcohol and medication. And
that would do it, too. But, yeah, that was... reports leaking out that he was showing up to meetings, like you said earlier, and practices just not himself, stuff like that. So it is unfortunate. But the report coming out with USC front office said releasing him just for the safety of the players.
Yep, you have to. There's a certain fine line because at the end of the day, these are still somebody else's children.
Right.
Sarkisian is a grown man that needs to deal with his own personal issues outside of the team.
Yeah, and he has to set the example.
Exactly.
I'm not going to judge him or anything like that, but you can't set the example of saying if you're going through something, you solve it by using alcohol and painkillers.
Yes.
So I totally agree with the USC organization. Also, just try not to judge Steve Sarkisian.
We hope
just
that he
being
gets
behind him
the
because
appropriate help.
Yeah, it's going through a divorce. I can't imagine it. It's never a good thing. You just have to feel for him because there's definitely probably some just deep issues. And then it's kind of unfortunate because people are speculating just because the football team isn't doing well that this had to come out with light. So I really hope that that's why people are focusing on this more because and I mean, I guess it could maybe possibly be a problem if the head coach isn't on point why USC isn't really doing well because there was supposed to be a top contender this year. But, I mean, it really shouldn't be focused on that. It should be separated.
Yeah. Yep.
I just feel for the USC organization, Steve Sarkisian, that whole system, hopefully this gets cleared up and we can see him healthy again back on the football field at some point.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, switching over to the University of South Carolina, a name that is very storied among the football world, especially college football, Steve Spurrier, as of last night, has told his players and coaches, according to ESPN.com, that he is retiring immediately. Absolutely immediately. Co-offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Sean Elliott has been named the interim and will replace Spurrier for the remainder of the season. Now, the Spurriers, Spurrier as a whole is South Carolina's all-time winningest coach. He is also just one of the biggest icons in college football history, I feel, as someone that's made such a fantastic impact on the game. You look at it, he's coached at Duke, Florida, and South Carolina. Duke, he did all right. He was there for 3 years. He was 20-13-1. Then he went to Florida, which I feel is really where he made his name, Grant. Right. He went 122-27-1 over 12 years.
Put that program on the map, and since he's gone, look where Florida, the Florida organization as a whole has gone.
Yep.
It's starting to pop up now more recently, but the last 5 years, Florida was really nothing. So he really did make that organization what it was in the past, because that was a huge college football superpower back in the day.
It was, and they're starting to see a reemergence as well this year.
Yes.
South Carolina, as we mentioned, is where he just finished coaching. He went 86-49 over 11 years. For Florida and South Carolina, Grant, he is the all-time winningest coach for both of those programs.
And that's crazy that you can do that at two separate schools. And when he came into South Carolina only had, I believe it was 1 or 2. Now, I lost the stat. But they only had one season with double-digit wins in its entire history.
Before he arrived back in 2005.
In 2005. They only had one season with double-digit wins.
Wow.
And then he comes in and then he just cleans the floor. His record, 86-49. Definitely not what Florida status with 122 wins, 27 losses, and 1 tie. But still, if you could take a program that is only in its entirety of the program only have one season with double-digit wins and then come in and go 86-49, I think that's doing pretty well. And the reason why let's talk about this a little bit. He's leaving mid-season, just kind of saying, all right, bye. It's 2-4 overall.
South Carolina are 2-4 overall this season, 0-4 in the SEC.
Right. And he's just... he's said he's just fed up with the age questions and criticizing.
Well, he's 70s, so I can understand why people would ask, hey, coach, you feeling like you're retiring? Like, I would get upset at that after a while.
But last year, they were 11-2 and ranked 4th in the country last year, and nobody was questioning his age. And now that he's 2-4, people are doing that. So he's really coming out and saying, does really a year change? Or is it just other circumstances and age is just a thing that people grasp onto? Because, how much is going to change in a year? Nothing has drastically changed with his health as far as we know. And
True.
He hasn't come out and said, he's the one questioning it, so I can't imagine that anything has changed with his health. We all know just how great of a coach he is sometimes coaches don't have great years, and his team comes out 2-4. He's trying to make them an SEC contender because... they've never won, they have won, he has not won an SEC championship with South Carolina. He was trying to. He did win with the Florida Gators. That's what I was getting confused by. He did win with the Florida Gators, but he was trying to win one with South Carolina. Hasn't been able to do that, running into problems with Alabama.
Rightfully so. And those programs that have really started to see a reemergence in their dominance. And while he was during his tenure, he was named SEC Coach of the Year 9 times between Florida and South Carolina as well. For those that don't know, Steve Spurrier also spent a little time at the Washington Redskins as well. He was the 1966 Heisman Trophy winner out of Florida. He played for the 49ers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL as well. So
As a quarterback,
yep. And he was only second overall all-time in wins. He's only behind the great Paul Bear Bryant overall for most wins by a college coach. And unfortunately, he will not be able to challenge for that record now. So we're sad to see Steve leave, but we know that... I think it was a good call. He realized that, hey, you know what? I'm at that point in my career that I need to just move on. So, it was like I mentioned, though, he and Paul Bear Bryant are the only coaches to record the most wins at 2 SEC schools. Bryant, with 159, has more SEC wins than Spurrier, who has 135. So
yeah, that's really cool.
That's really great to see both of them really, dominate the football landscape. And I'm sure that Florida and South Carolina and even Alabama for Bryant are eternally grateful for those contributions from both of those coaches. All right, we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. This is the Bax Grant Sports Show. Welcome back to the Bax Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax. Grant was here, but he had to take off, as he does every Tuesday and Thursday, to go to class. So we wish him all the best in his academia that he will experience now for the remainder of the day. All right, before we go, some of you know that I play fantasy football. Some of you know that I also play daily fantasy football, or weekly fantasy football, or bi-weekly, or however weekly it's split up. Anyway, I play on two different sites. One of the things I'm always asked about is, hey, do you play on FanDuel? Do you play on DraftKings? Do you play Draft Ops? Where do you play? And I tell people that, hey, yeah, I've tried FanDuel. I've tried DraftKings, Draft Ops, this, that, the other, Redraft, Hero, all those things. But I found two different places that I thoroughly enjoy playing weekly and daily fantasy football on. One of them, we had the CEO of the website on. His name was Kevin Liao. I play at Draft Fury. DraftFury.com is where one of the two places that I play for weekly and daily fantasy. They're a newer website, but something I really like the format of how they do things there on the website, honestly. There's it's still a smaller site, so it's not overpopulated. There's protection against playing against sharks, so they can't come in and just steal all your money, basically. So that way you can enjoy the games, play to the best of your abilities, and not worry about having a lot of possibilities of losing a lot of money or any of that stuff as well. But they have a really cool program as well with their pickup games, and that's one of the things that I wanted to go back and review how I did in the week that was the weekly fantasy football for the NFL Week 5. So I'll be the first to admit I have yet to perfect my my weekly pick'em free rolls, as they call them, and my team, the winning score. Let's say this: the winning score that won in this week's NFL Week 5 pick'em free roll on DraftFury.com was. The winning score was 226.34. I had 145.26. So not exactly the greatest week from me. However, I was hampered by a few different things. So I'm going to walk through my lineup. And for those of you that don't know how the pick'ems work on DraftFury.com, you are given 9 pools of players sorted from best to basically. And you have to pick one player out of each of those that you think is going to score you the most points. You pick that. As they go through, you accumulate the points, and you go from there. So, I'll be honest. I mean, as you look at some of my players, you might think, okay, that makes sense. And other players might be like, why'd you pick him? So, in the first player pot, I took Jamal Charles, thinking that he was going to have a field day with the Chicago Bears. That obviously did not end up being the case, as he only got me 9.4 points. He had 26 receiving yards on one reception and 58 rushing yards, and then ended up tearing his ACL. So one of those things is a daily fantasy under, there's nothing you can do about. But the great thing about it, as you've heard, I'm sure, on daily fantasy before, is that you can draft a whole new team next week, and I'm going to. So thankfully, I don't have to worry about redoing my entire team around Jamal Charles. I also drafted Matt Ryan, who did not have a good game. You thought, Matt Ryan against Washington, okay, there's a good opportunity for this. Matt Ryan only got me 9.16 points. It was pretty ugly. Pretty ugly. Rob Gronkowski also I had on my team. He got me 10.7 points. Once again, against Dallas, I thought Tom Brady would be a little bit more generous with his passing. Not so much. Larry Fitzgerald did get me one touchdown, so that was great to see. He got me 16.8 points. Emmanuel Sanders was on my team. He got me 23.1 points. Devonta Freeman got me 35.7. He was the leading scorer on my team this last week. He had one rushing touchdown, 153 rushing yards, 44 receiving yards, 7 receptions. James Jones was also on my team. He had one receiving touchdown on 2 catches for 77 yards, so he got me 15.7 points. I had TJ Yeldon from Jacksonville on my team. He had a 17.3 point performance. And then there was LeGarrette Blount as well, who got me 7.4. So I'll be honest, it wasn't the best week on daily fantasy for me on that one. Flipping over to they have the pick'ems, but they also have the salary cap games as well here on FanDuel, on DraftFury.com. The winning score in the Fury bonus free roll that I played in was 208.8. I finished with 182.84. So I had a little bit better. I ranked 43rd out of the 495 that played, so I was a little happier about that, but still not good enough in my book. I had a lot of great production this week from this team. However, the one place that I got shafted on was the quarterback position. I had Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning against Oakland, I thought, yeah, there's a good chance for that. And then Charles Woodson decided to rain on my parade, unfortunately. So Peyton Manning only got me 8.64 points. I had Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, Allen Hurns, James Jones again, Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, Tavon Austin, and then the Denver defense also really helped me out. So I was very thrilled by most of that production, aside from Peyton Manning. Had I even had a normal quarterback show up and produce some good numbers, that might have put me up in the top 10 or top 20, depending on who it was. I know some quarterbacks played really well this last week. I should have started Josh McCown. Right, who thought that was going to happen? And then one of the other places that I play, before I go, though, with Draft Fury, if you want to play on Draft Fury, you can. You can play for free. Use the promo code BAX, B-A-X, when you sign up to play for free. You can also get up to $1,000 in your matched on your first deposit. So if you deposit up to $1,000, Draft Fury will match that if you use the promo code BAX, B-A-X, when you play. Go ahead and sign up today. Come challenge me. Let me know if you're on Draft Fury, and I'd be happy to challenge you either in a head-to-head, or we can form a league and you can play in one of the leagues that I play in on a weekly basis. One of the other places that I play on weekly/daily fantasy sports is on Side League. Side League is an iOS app that I highly recommend you guys go get. No salary cap as well. You get to pick player slots, though, so you have to pick 2 quarterbacks, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, a flex, and a defense each week. And you can play for money if you want. You can also play for free. This last week, the highest I scored in the 4 games that I was playing was second. And the top 3 people in every league get points or get awarded things. So my winning team, or my best production team this week, was a team for 183 points, was Aaron Rodgers, Carson Palmer, Julian Edelman, Julio Jones, Jamal Charles, unfortunately, Le'Veon Bell, Odell Beckham Jr., and the Denver defense. So I was rather thrilled by the production. Denver's defense got me 40 points this week on Side League. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Side League, it's an app. Go download it today on the App Store. You will not be disappointed. Thoroughly recommend you check it out. Draft Fury, promo code BAX, B-A-X, play for free. Get your first deposit matched up to $1,000. Challenge me, challenge Grant. Grant is on there as well. You can use the promo code GRANT, G-R-A-N-T, if you want to play and support Grant as well. Let us know. You're always welcome to play. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. Remember, right here, Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com and on Periscope. You can also listen to us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time on Live 365 and TuneIn, and on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on Spreaker.com. You can also get us on social media, on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show, Twitter at BG Sports Show, at Baxter Colburn, and at Grant's Rant, BGSS. We'll see you all tomorrow. Sam Wallace will be back co-hosting. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Enjoy your day, everyone.